Ambassador Kythix of the Kithran Republic stood at the center of the massive council chamber, his 6 legs barely keeping him upright. The crystalline walls of the station reflected the dim light from a dozen different star systems, each represented by their respective delegates. His chitinous exoskeleton, once a brilliant emerald green, had dulled to a sickly gray over the past months of sleepless nights and endless refugee reports. The holographic displays around him showed the devastating truth. Colony after colony marked in red, indicating total destruction. Kepler 442b, home to 12 million Kithrans, was nothing but asteroid debris now. New Kaitara, the agricultural world that fed half a republic, had been stripped bare, its fertile soil consumed along with every living thing on the surface. Honored delegates. Kythix began, his voice carrying the harmonic clicks that made Kithran speech so distinctive. The Vorthak swarm moves like a plague across our territory. They do not conquer. They do not negotiate. They devour everything. The Centauri delegate, a tall, blue-skinned humanoid named Chancellor Vex, leaned forward in his floating chair. His species had faced raiders before, but nothing like this. Ambassador, your republic has always maintained strong defensive fleets. How did they break through so quickly? Kythix's mandibles clicked in what humans might recognize as bitter laughter. We thought we were prepared. Our battle cruisers, our orbital platforms, our shield generators. The swarm hit Kepler 442b with 7,000 ships. Not raiders or pirates, but a coordinated fleet larger than anything we had ever seen. Our entire third defense fleet was destroyed in 6 hours. A massive spider-like delegate from the Arachnid Confederacy spoke through her translator unit, her 8 eyes glowing with concern. The Confederacy has monitored these Vorthaks. They appear to be nomadic, moving from system to system. But 7,000 ships suggest something far more organized than we initially believed. The hologram shifted to show grainy footage from a surviving reconnaissance drone. The Vorthak ships were unlike anything in the galactic database. Dark, organic-looking vessels that seemed to pulse with their own life. Some were massive, the size of small moons, while others swarmed like insects around them. They moved in perfect coordination, as if controlled by a single mind. They stripped our colonies bare in weeks. Kythix continued, his voice breaking slightly. Not just the cities or the military installations. Everything. The forests, the oceans, even the bacterial life in the soil. Kepler 442b was a living world for 3 billion years. Now it's a dead rock floating in space. The chamber fell silent except for the soft humming of the environmental systems. Delegate Thorin of the Rigel Alliance, a stocky humanoid with gray skin and large black eyes, finally spoke. The Alliance can spare 2 medical frigates and a supply convoy. It's not much, but our own borders need defending. Chancellor Vex nodded slowly. The Centauri Collective can provide 1 hospital ship equipped with the latest medical facilities. We understand the refugee crisis your surviving colonies face. One by one, the delegates offered what little they could. A patrol squadron here, emergency supplies there. Each offer was accompanied by apologies and explanations of their own security concerns. Kythix felt the weight of desperation settling on his shoulders like a heavy cloak. The Galactic Council had faced pirates, territorial disputes, and trade conflicts, but nothing like the Vorthak swarm, nothing that threatened complete extinction of entire species. Then Admiral James Mitchell of the Terran Federation stood up. The human was unremarkable by galactic standards, of average height with graying hair and tired eyes. His species had only joined the Council 18 months ago, and most delegates still consider them newcomers, barely worthy of notice. Mitchell had been quiet throughout the session, taking notes on an old-fashioned paper tablet while other delegates used advanced holographic interfaces. His uniform was simple, dark blue with minimal decoration, unlike the elaborate ceremonial garments of the other military representatives. Admiral Mitchell, Chancellor Vex addressed him with barely concealed condescension. Does the Terran Federation have anything to offer? Your species is still establishing its own defense networks. Are you not? Mitchell looked up from his notes, his expression unreadable. We are, he said simply, but Ambassador Kythix has asked for help. The simplicity of the statement caught Kythix off guard. No political calculations, no mention of strategic interests or trade benefits, just an acknowledgement that help had been requested. "We'll send what we can," Mitchell continued, his voice quiet but carrying clearly through the chamber. Kythix felt something he hadn't experienced in weeks. Hope. It was small, barely a flicker, but it was there. The humans were new to galactic politics. True, but they had surprised everyone with their rapid technological advancement and their unusual approach to diplomacy. "Thank you, Admiral," Kythix said, his voice carrying genuine gratitude. Even a few human ships would be more than he had dared to hope for from the galaxy's newest members. Lisa Thompson had been working the sensor arrays aboard Kithra Prime Station for 8 years, but she had never seen readings like this. The long-range scanners were picking up mass signatures that made no sense. She rubbed her compound eyes with a thin appendage, thinking fatigue was playing tricks on her vision. "Computer, run full diagnostic on sensor arrays 7 through 12. She chittered into her headset, her voice carrying the musical quality typical of her species. The response came back clean. No malfunctions. No interference from the nearby nebula. The readings were accurate, which made them even more impossible to believe. 3 weeks had passed since Ambassador Kythix returned from Galactic Council with promises of limited aid. A hospital ship from the Centauri, some supply transports from Rigel, and whatever the humans could spare from their own defenses. Lisa had expected maybe a dozen ships at most, probably outdated vessels that the Terran Federation could afford to risk. The proximity alarms began sounding throughout the station as the first wave of contacts dropped out of hyperspace at the system's edge. Lisa's secondary arms flew across her control console, trying to process the incoming data streams. Admiral Richards to the sensor bay. She called through the station communication system, her voice cracking slightly. "We have incoming human vessels." Admiral Richards arrived within minutes, his ceremonial armor clanking against the metal flooring. The old warrior had commanded Kithran fleets for 30 years, through 3 border wars and countless pirate raids. His scarred exoskeleton told the story of a lifetime spent protecting his people. "Report, Thompson," he commanded, settling his bulky frame beside her console. Lisa's hands trembled as she transferred the sensor data to the main display. "So, I'm reading massive hyperspace disruptions across the entire outer perimeter. Initial count shows this can't be right. Give me numbers, Thompson." 347 distinct contacts, sir, and they are still arriving. Richard stared at the tactical display in stunned silence. The computer was painting contact after contact in blue, indicating friendly vessels. But the sheer scale defied comprehension. Massive signatures that could only be capital ships. Medium contact that matched the profiles of cruisers and destroyers. Smaller vessels that appeared to be fighters and support craft. "Computer, identify vessel classifications," Richards ordered. The station's artificial intelligence began processing the incoming identification signals. Contact include 12 vessels matching dreadnought specifications, 4 to 7 heavy cruisers, 68 destroyers, 23 hospital ships, 56 supply vessels, 18 mobile shipyards. Remaining contacts classified as escort vessels, fighters, and support craft. Lisa watched the screens in amazement as the human fleet arranged itself in perfect formation. The larger ships took positions in the outer system while smaller vessels moved toward Kithra Prime. But what impressed them most was the coordination. Every ship knew exactly where to go, moving with the precision of a dance performance. "Admiral," Communications Officer Blake Wilson called from across the command center. "Receiving transmission from the flagship." The main display flickered and revealed the bridge of a human vessel. Admiral James Mitchell stood before the camera, his simple uniform a stark contrast to the advanced technology surrounding him. Behind him, Lisa could see human crew members working at their stations with quiet efficiency. "Kithran Republic. This is Admiral James Mitchell commanding the Human Expeditionary Force. We're here to help." The transmission ended, leaving the Kithran Command Center in absolute silence. Admiral Richard stared at the tactical display, his mandibles clicking rapidly in what Lisa recognized as deep thought mixed with disbelief. "So," she ventured carefully, "should I contact Ambassador Kythix?" Richards continued staring at the display. The human fleet had taken up defensive positions throughout the system, creating overlapping fields of fire that would make any attacking force pay dearly for every kilometer of space. Mobile shipyard were already beginning construction of orbital platforms, while hospital ships moved toward the refugee camps on Kithra Prime's third moon. Thompson, in your 8 years operating these sensors, have you ever seen a fleet this large? Lisa considered the question carefully. No, sir. Not even during the Hegemony War when the combined council fleets assembled at Rigel. This is bigger than anything in our military databases. Patch me through to the flagship, Richards ordered, his voice carrying a note of respect that hadn't been there before. The communication channel opened, and Admiral Mitchell's face appeared on the screen again. This time, Lisa could see more of the human bridge. The technology looked advanced, but not flashy. Everything seemed designed for efficiency rather than show. Admiral Mitchell, Richards began, the Kithran Republic is grateful for your response, but we must ask, is this your entire fleet? Mitchell smiled slightly, the first emotion Lisa had seen him display. Admiral Richards, this is our third fleet. We have 4 more in reserve, plus our home defense force. The implications hit Lisa like a physical blow. The humans hadn't just sent aid. They hadn't even sent their entire military. This massive armada that dwarfed anything the Kithrans had ever assembled was just 1/5 of humanity's space navy. Admiral, Richards said slowly, when we requested assistance, we expected perhaps a medical ship and some supplies. We don't do things halfway, Admiral Richards, Mitchell replied. The Vorthak swarm is a threat to every living being in this galaxy. We're here to make sure they don't get any further. Lisa watched as human fighters began patrol runs along the system perimeter, their movements precise and purposeful. These weren't the actions of a species offering limited aid. This was a deployment of a war machine unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. Captain Robert Davis stood on the bridge of the HMS Indomitable, watching his tactical display transform the Kithran system into a fortress. The massive dreadnought served as a command hub for the entire Third Fleet, its advanced computers processing data from hundreds of ships simultaneously. Deployment status report. Davis called to his operations officer. Lieutenant Commander Helen Foster looked up from her console. So, defensive grid is 60% complete. We have automated weapons platforms operational around the 3 inner planets. Mobile shipyards are producing additional platforms every 4 hours. Davis nodded, satisfied with the progress. Human military doctrine emphasized speed and overwhelming preparation. While other species might take weeks to establish basic defenses, the human fleet had transformed the Kithran system into a killing field in less than 2 days. So, Weapons Officer Tony Clark reported, long-range sensors are picking up reconnaissance probes at the edge of the system. Definitely Vorthak design. Destroy them, Davis ordered without hesitation. I want the enemy to know we're here, but I don't want them getting detailed scans of our positions. The bridge crew worked with practiced efficiency. Human warships engaged the probes with precision laser strikes, vaporizing them before they could transmit detailed intelligence back to the swarm. Each probe destroyed sent a clear message. This system was now under human protection. Communications Officer Patricia Williams turned from her station. Admiral Mitchell wants a word, so... Davis activated the ship-to-ship channel. Admiral Mitchell's face appeared on the main screen, transmitted from his flagship 3,000 kilometers away. Captain, the Kithran leadership is asking questions about our deployment scale, Mitchell said. Ambassador Kythix wants to know why we brought such a large force for what they considered a small conflict. Davis glanced at his tactical display. Human ships were spread throughout the system in overlapping defensive positions. Fighter squadrons patrolled in rotating patterns, while heavy cruisers maintained firing positions near major orbital installations. It was textbook human fleet doctrine, but apparently overwhelming by galactic standards. What should I tell them? So, Patricia asked. Mitchell's expression remained calm but determined. Tell them humans have a saying, if you're going to fight, fight to win. The philosophy behind those words ran deep in human military culture. Where other species sent measured responses and limited engagements, humans approached conflict with total commitment. Half measures led to prolonged wars and unnecessary casualties. So, Navigation Officer William Brooks called from his station, our reconnaissance squadrons are reporting back from Vorthak territory. The enemy fleet is massive, estimated at over 800 vessels. Davis studied the incoming intelligence reports. The Vorthak swarm moved like a living organism, with smaller ships clustering around massive bioships that served as command centers. Their technologies seemed to blend organic and mechanical elements in ways that defied conventional understanding. "Deploy our hunter-killer groups," Davis ordered. "I want them hitting Vorthak supply lines and disrupting their formation before they reach our defensive perimeter." Human tactics differed significantly from standard galactic warfare. Most species preferred large, decisive battles between main fleets. Humans had learned the value of asymmetric warfare, using smaller groups to harass and weaken enemy forces before the main engagement. Across the galaxy, other Council species monitored the human deployment with growing concern. On the Zentori homeworld, Chancellor Vex reviewed intelligence reports with his military advisors. The humans deployed their entire Third Fleet, his chief of intelligence reported, plus support elements from their Second Fleet. "Our analysts estimate they have committed nearly 400 vessels to the Kithran defense." Chancellor Vex studied the holographic displays showing human ship positions. For a species that joined the Council less than 2 years ago, their military capabilities are unexpected. Similar conversations were taking place on worlds throughout the galaxy. The Rigel Alliance leadership held emergency sessions to reassess their understanding of human military doctrine. The Arachnic Confederacy deployed additional border patrols, suddenly aware that their new neighbors possessed far more firepower than previously believed. On the bridge of the Indomitable, Davis received reports from reconnaissance teams pushing deep into enemy territory. Human ships moved with coordinated precision, gathering intelligence while avoiding direct confrontation. The data they collected painted a picture of an enemy unlike anything the galaxy had faced before. "Captain," Sensor Operator Kevin Taylor reported, "we're detecting some kind of massive energy signature moving with the main swarm. It's unlike anything in our databases." Davis frowned as he studied the sensor readings. The Vorthak fleet included something enormous, possibly a command ship or mobile base. Its energy output suggested weapons capabilities that could threaten entire planets. "Transmit this data to Admiral Mitchell immediately," Davis ordered, "and prepare deployment orders for our heavy assault groups." The human fleet continued its methodical preparation, transforming the Kithran system into a fortress while simultaneously gathering intelligence on enemy capabilities. Every ship knew its role. Every crew member understood the mission. Patricia Williams received another transmission from the Kithran leadership. "So, Ambassador Kythix is requesting a meeting with Admiral Mitchell. He says the Council species are concerned about our military presence." Davis almost smiled. The galaxy was learning what humans meant when they offered help. This wasn't a token gesture or political maneuvering. When humans committed to protecting innocent lives, they brought everything necessary to ensure victory. "Tell the ambassador that Admiral Mitchell will meet with him once our defensive preparations are complete," Davis replied. "We have work to do." The Vorthak swarm dropped out of hyperspace like a plague of locusts, their biomechanical ships blotting out the stars around Kithra Prime. Over 1 million vessels of various sizes moved in perfect synchronization, from massive command ships the size of small moons down to fighter-sized organisms that pulse with their own sickly light. Swarm leader Vexthal had devoured 17 civilizations in his long existence. The pattern never changed. His scouts would identify a target system, the swarm would arrive in overwhelming numbers, and the defenders would either flee or surrender within hours. The few species that chose to fight rarely lasted more than a day against the swarm's relentless assault. Deploy consumption protocols. Vexthal commanded through the bio-neural link that connected every ship in his fleet. Begin with the outer settlements. Leave the core world for last so the inhabitants can witness their fate. But as the swarm moved toward the inner system, something was wrong. Long-range sensors detected massive energy signatures throughout the Kithran system. Instead of scattered refugee ships and broken defense platforms, they found a fully deployed battle fleet unlike anything in the swarm collective memory. Admiral Mitchell watched the enemy approach from the bridge of his flagship, the HMS Sovereign. The tactical display showed the true scale of the threat. Nearly 1 million Vorthak vessels arranged in a formation that stretched across several million kilometers of space. "All ships, this is Admiral Mitchell." He broadcast to the entire Third Fleet. "The enemy has arrived. Remember your training. Remember why we're here. Today we show the galaxy what happens when you threaten innocent people in human-protected space." Commander Michael Thompson received the Admiral's transmission aboard the HMS Valiant, a heavy cruiser positioned near the system's fourth planet. His crew had spent days preparing for this moment, running combat drills and studying Vorthak tactical patterns gathered by reconnaissance teams. "So," his weapons officer reported, "the Kithran cruiser Steadfast is taking heavy fire from a Vorthak bioship. Their shields are failing." Thompson didn't hesitate. "All power to engines. Plot a ramming course for that bioship." The Valiant accelerated toward the massive Vorthak vessel, its reinforced hull gleaming under the light of the system star. Ramming attacks were considered desperate tactics by most galactic species, but humans had turned them into a calculated strategy. The Valiant's armor could withstand the impact while delivering devastating damage to enemy vessels. "Brace for impact," Thompson announced as his ship slammed into the Vorthak bioship's flank. The collision tore through organic armor plating and sent the enemy vessel spinning out of control. The damaged Kithran cruiser limped away to safety while the Valiant prepared for its next target. Meanwhile, Marine Sergeant Helen Clark found herself fighting through the corridors of a Vorthak command ship. Her boarding party had breached the vessel's hull using specialized cutting charges, and now they fought to reach the ship's control center. The interior of the Vorthak ship was a nightmare of organic walls that pulsed like living tissue. Creatures that were part machine and part insect scuttled through the corridors, defending their vessel with mandible-mounted energy weapons. "Contact front," Clark shouted as a team encountered a group of Vorthak warriors. The aliens were tall and skeletal, with multiple arms ending in blade-like appendages, but they moved slowly compared to human reflexes. Clark's assault rifle fired in controlled bursts, taking down the lead warrior before it could close the distance. Her team advanced through the ship with a methodical precision that made human Marines feared throughout the galaxy. Captain David Johnson commanded Destroyer Squadron 7, 12 fast attack vessels that moved through space like a pack of wolves. The human tactic of coordinated small unit attacks confused the Vorthak, who expected large ships to engage in direct combat. Alpha Group hit their port flank. Johnson ordered over the squadron's tactical network. Beta Group, swing around and target their command cluster. Charlie Group, prepare for torpedo runs. The destroyers struck in waves, launching volleys of fusion torpedoes before disappearing behind asteroid fields and debris clouds. Each attack weakened the Vorthak formation while avoiding direct confrontation with larger enemy vessels. Lieutenant Mary Foster led Fighter Wing Bravo in what other species would consider suicide attacks. Her squadron of 36 fighters dove straight into concentrations of enemy vessels, using their speed and maneuverability to break up Vorthak attack formations. "Remember," Foster transmitted to her pilots, "we're not trying to destroy every enemy ship. We're disrupting their coordination. Hit them hard and get out." The human fighters weaved through clouds of enemy fire, their pilots pushing their aircraft to the absolute limits of performance. Several fighters were lost, but their sacrifice allowed larger human vessels to exploit the gaps in enemy lines. The Vorthak had never encountered an enemy like this. Where other species retreated when outnumbered, humans became more aggressive. Where others sought negotiation, humans pressed their attacks with relentless determination. Day after day, the battle raged throughout the Kithran system. Human ships fought with ferocity that shocked both enemies and allies. When ammunition ran low, they rammed enemy vessels. When hulls were breached, crew members continued fighting in vacuum suits. By the sixth day, the million-ship swarm had been reduced to scattered fragments fleeing toward deep space. Vexthal command ship was destroyed by a coordinated attack from 3 human battle groups, and without central coordination, the remaining Vorthak vessels lost all cohesion. The galaxy watched in amazement as humanity's Third Fleet had accomplished what should have been impossible, turning certain defeat into overwhelming victory. The aftermath of the battle left the Kithran system scarred but victorious. Debris from destroyed Vorthak bioships drifted through space like the remains of some ancient nightmare, while human recovery vessels worked tirelessly to clear shipping lanes and salvage useful materials. Commander Andrew Baker stood on the observation deck of the Mobile Repair Station Unity, watching as human engineering teams worked alongside Kithran technicians to rebuild the damaged orbital platforms around Kithra Prime. The cooperation between species amazed him. Despite their different biologies and technologies, humans and Kithrans had found ways to work together effectively. "Commander," Engineering Chief Rebecca Moore reported over the communication system, We've restored power to Orbital Station 7. The Kithrin medical facilities are back online. Bacon nodded, making notes on his electronic tablet. The human fleet had brought more than just weapons to the Kithrin system. Mobile shipyards, medical vessels, and engineering platforms were now transforming the battle-damaged infrastructure into something stronger than it had been before the Vorthak attack. 3 decks below, Captain Jennifer Lewis supervised the main medical bay where human doctors worked alongside Kithrin physicians to treat the wounded from both species. The biological differences had initially posed challenges, but human medical technology proved surprisingly adaptable. Dr. Thompson, Lewis called to her chief medical officer, how are the Kithrin patients responding to our treatment protocols? Dr. Gregory Thompson looked up from a biobed where a young Kithrin warrior was recovering from severe injuries sustained during the battle. Better than expected, Captain. Their healing processes are actually enhanced by some of our regenerative treatments. We're learning as much from them as they are from us. The medical bay buzzed with activity as teams of mixed species worked to save lives. Human technology and Kithrin biological knowledge combined to create treatment options that neither species could have achieved alone. Ambassador Kythix made his way through the corridors of the HMS Sovereign Admiral Mitchell flagship. The human vessel impressed him with its functional design and obvious quality. Unlike the ornate ships preferred by many galactic species, human vessels prioritize efficiency and effectiveness over appearance. The Admiral's ready room overlooked the main hangar bay, where human and Kithrin fighters sat side by side undergoing maintenance. Through the massive viewports, Kythix could see the ongoing reconstruction efforts throughout the system. Admiral Mitchell. Kythix began as he entered the room, his translator converting his chittering speech into standard galactic. I wanted to thank you personally for what your species has done for us. Mitchell gestured for the ambassador to take a seat, though the furniture had been quickly modified to accommodate Kithrin physiology. No thanks necessary, Ambassador. We did what needed to be done. Kythix studied the human admiral carefully. That's what puzzles me, Admiral. When we requested aid from the Galactic Council, we expected token assistance. A medical ship, perhaps some supplies. Instead, you brought enough firepower to challenge entire galactic fleets. Through the viewport, they watched as human construction robots worked alongside Kithrin engineers to build new defensive platforms. The robots moved with precision and purpose, their programming adapted to work with alien technologies they had never encountered before. We barely knew each other, Kythix continued. Our species had only met 18 months ago, yet you committed your entire third fleet to our defense. Why? Mitchell stood and walked to the viewport, his hands clasped behind his back as he watched the recovery operations. Ambassador, you asked for aid. When someone asks human for help, especially when innocent lives are at stake, we respond with everything we have. But surely the cost, the risk to your own territory. We don't do half measures when people are dying, Mitchell interrupted gently. It's not in our nature to send just enough help to make ourselves feel better while still allowing a tragedy to unfold. The conversation was being monitored by representatives from across the galaxy. On the Zentori homeworld, Chancellor Vex reviewed the intelligence reports with growing amazement. His military advisors had initially dismissed the humans as another minor species seeking galactic recognition. Now they realized their fundamental error. The human response wasn't political calculation, Vex told his council. They genuinely committed their entire military force to protect a species they barely knew. This changes everything about how we understand them. Similar discussions were taking place throughout the galaxy. The Rigel Alliance leadership held emergency sessions to reassess their military doctrines. The Arachnid Confederacy began reviewing their territorial agreements with human space, suddenly aware that their neighbors possessed both overwhelming military capability and an apparent willingness to use it for humanitarian purposes. Admiral Mitchell turned back to Ambassador Kythix. The truth is, Ambassador, humans have learned that small conflicts often become large ones if left unchecked. The Vorthak swarm would have consumed your republic, then moved on to the next target, growing stronger with each victory. So you saw stopping them here as preventing a larger threat? Partly, Mitchell admitted, but mostly we saw people who needed help, and we helped them. It's really that simple. Outside the viewport, the reconstruction continued. Human medical ships ferried wounded Kithrins to advanced treatment facilities. Engineering vessels worked around the clock to repair damaged infrastructure. Fighter squadrons from both species conducted joint patrols to ensure no Vortex stragglers threatened the civilian population. The Galactic Council finally understood what they had gained when humanity joined their ranks. This wasn't just another trading partner or diplomatic ally. They had welcomed a species that considered the defense of innocent life worth deploying entire fleets, regardless of political considerations or strategic benefits. The galaxy was safer now, but the other species also realized they were sharing space with a military power unlike anything they had previously encountered. Humans didn't just fight to win battles. They fought to end wars permanently, with overwhelming force applied for humanitarian purposes. The END,